Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nitchman.
Our guest today is Scott Sturgill, CEO of Durable Safety Products, a successful safety company who has employees locally and throughout the United States. Scott became involved in politics after seeing firsthand how high taxes and red tape impact entrepreneurs. He takes a strong stance against wasteful spending and demands politicians adhere to the same rules as everyone else. Scott is running for Congress in Florida's 7th Congressional District. To support Scott and his campaign, go to scottsturgillforcongress.com. Hi, Scott. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our Heartbeat of the World segment. I'm so grateful to have you out here today. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm so blessed that Joshua was able to connect us. And you are running for Congress in Florida. And I thought you would be the perfect person to come out here. We've had a number of people. We started this segment because last year after the election, we had a lot of angry citizens at each other, a lot of animosity and polarization. And I said, instead of hollering and being angry at each other as citizens, we need to come together and have dialogue and conversation, regardless of what party lines you want to pick. And we can't do that if we're screaming and hollering. So I invited people around the globe in different capacities, what they see and perceive as some of the biggest issues, and what we might do as citizens to try to resolve that. Share with the audience a little bit about your background. What prompted you to run for Congress?
Sure. So I am. I reside in just outside of Orlando, Florida, in a town called Sanford, which is right in between Orlando and Daytona Beach, along the coveted I-4 corridor, which we all hear about during the presidential election cycles. Mm-hmm. So as a business owner, I own a business called DSP Partners, and we manufacture personal protective safety equipment. So everything from steel-toed boots to hard hats, eyewear, hearing protection, and other items that are then sold through distribution channels throughout the United States. So we currently sell through about 850 distributors who then go on and resell it to the consumer. Mm-hmm. And so as being a successful business owner, I've been very blessed. And so now it's time to do something significant and give back to our country. Look at the politicians that, run for office and who get elected. And, while most of them are great people, mm-hmm. when they haven't had any real life experience, it's hard for them to talk about cutting regulations or fixing healthcare if they've never been on the other side of the desk and actually signed the paychecks. Mm. Everyone signs the back of a paycheck, but very few people get the honor of signing the front of paychecks. We have 43 employees who we're responsible for every day. And so that's 43 families. Mm-hmm. We want to bring our experience to DC, and I'm a big believer in term limits.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so true, because right now, there's people serving over and over and over and over again. And I talk to people and they're disillusioned with whoever's serving in their county, in their district, in their state. But they go back and they vote for the same person again and again. And when I ask them why, and they say, well, I don't know the other folks or not, I don't want to go beyond maybe the Democrat or Republic Party. So I just stay with what I know. The devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. And I'm like, well, really, is it? And what I like about what you're doing is you see a problem and you see a need, and you're, instead of complaining about it, you're deciding to step out there and do something about it, which is very admirable. Thank you very much for going out there and looking for a way to make things better. Was there anything about the process you were surprised when you got started that you didn't expect?
Probably the personal attacks that you get via social media really haven't, we're still into really the beginning stages of the campaign at this point. Obviously we spend most of our time fundraising because this is a top 5 race nationally, because it is the I-4 corridor. And so we spend a lot of our time fundraising, but it's interesting. People, we post something on Facebook or social media and you get attacked real quick without people kind of really maybe reading the story that you've linked to or understanding what our full position is. So that's probably the most disheartening fact, but I'll take that small percentage of folks who want to attack us, because we've been very blessed with a bunch of good supporters from not only from people who are engaged in the political process, but just people who are just regular folks who are in the business world or who aren't really politically engaged, who said thank you for stepping up. And so it's a very humbling experience, because for me it's an honor to be able to put our name forward, and I've got the support of my wife and my kids and obviously my business partners to do this, because without them this would not be possible. but it's a very humbling experience. So I enjoy it. I enjoy getting to meet the people, as we go around and do different events, and we're starting the door knocking process to do the petition process to get onto the ballot.
Yes.
And I enjoy the conversations, because you don't get the same question from every doorstep. It's always a different doorstep, different question at doorsteps, and everyone's issues are different.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you're going out there to get the real meat of what the people find important, because it's interesting. When I sit down, often people will quote back at first on surface level what they hear in the news or the newspapers. They'll quote back the article titles. But when I go deeper, I get to find out what's important to that person. What do they care about? What's bothering them? Maybe it's the education of their kids. They feel they're not getting a proper education. Or in the past 10 years, their salary has gone further and further down. And so, as you go deeper and you talk to each person, you find there's different things that are important to each family and each person. And it's great that you're getting out there and finding for each individual person in your area, what are their needs and what are their wants?
By talking, we can do polling and we can do, different surveys, but those don't really tell us exactly, what the main issues are. The main issues come directly from the voter contact.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that is the most helpful to me and our team. Our team has been growing very quickly to, again, understand what the different issues are, because not every congressional district's issues are the same. For some areas, it is more about school choice and parents being able to send their kids to the school of their choice, and whether it be a charter school or a voucher system. And then some people it's healthcare, some people it's taxes. But again, most people, they're affected by their local politics versus the national politics.
Yeah, I love that you just mentioned that, because I think when we have like the president elections going on, people took so much focus on that. But then when the local elections come about, or even city council, people are like, I don't need to vote for that. I'm like, yes, that's more important. That affects your daily life. That is where you're living. These people do affect your everyday life. And not that the president does not affect your everyday life as well, but it's even more tangible in the people who are serving your area.
Yeah, and the local elections, and you're absolutely right. The local elections affect people's daily life more than anything else. And and I have a lot of respect for our local elected officials, whether it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on for me. Yes. Because most of the time they're paid very little. If they are paid, it's usually very little. I mean, probably under in some cases $10,000 a year. For multiple meetings and time away from their family and their daily life. But it is just, that is going to be the biggest impact on people's daily lives is the local elections, because they're going to control your property taxes. They're going to control your local sales tax, your different ordinances and zoning. So that is the biggest thing that people tend to forget. And so I always tell people, look, be civil, whether you agree with your politicians or not, be civil. They're doing a job, doing it for the goodness of their heart. And majority of cases, they're out there doing it because they feel like it's the right thing to do. So I always tell people, look, be civil, because when you see them in the grocery store or the regular store, but there's no sense to be hostile, because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that's the reason we started this segment, is that we all really want the same things. We want to be able to have a prosperous life for our family, to love and have good health. All of that, we all want the same basic needs met. And we might have different ways of wanting to go about it, but it doesn't mean that we all don't want the same things, to have a roof over our head, for our kids to be okay. But to fight and holler and bicker and be mean to your neighbor, well, that's not going to fix anything. And that's why I'm glad we started this. And what I got from the beginning that you said there is that you said we are responsible for 40 odd some employees that we take very seriously. And one thing I've realized about the whole process of running for any office is it's very costly, not only in time, but in your own finances, and not only raising money, but out of your own pocket to run for any office. And I don't think people put or take into account the respect that takes. Now, these are public servants, but they are putting a great sacrifice forward to help the country and the nation. And, it'd be great for us to band together instead of tearing down, like the negative comments you might get from some people, to help build up those people. And let's see what we can do to work together as a whole community, as a whole country, as a whole nation.
Correct. And you're right. It is a very expensive process. Running for any office is very expensive. Obviously, the higher you go up, the more expensive it gets. Our race is obviously a multi-million-dollar race, because it is a top 5 race nationally, and that's just what we will raise as a campaign. It's not counting the outside PACs and their independent expenditures that we'll have no control on, or no coordination on. It is a very expensive process, and again, it's a lot of time away from my family. It's a lot of time away from my company. I mean, I'm fortunate that with our company, we've got our executive team that is is starting to take over more and more of my duties as I kind of transition more into the campaign mode. But yeah, I mean, really, I could do literally a breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day with donors 7 days a week. Right now I try to limit that to where I'm only out maybe 2 to 3 nights a week, because I still want to be home with my family. I'm trying to treasure this time, because as I know, as it gets closer to the election, that time is going to become less and less. And luckily my kids are very understanding about it. My wife is very understanding about it. But when we decided to make this run for the office, my wife and I sat down with our 2 little girls, they're 12 and 8, and said, hey, do you guys understand that Daddy's going to run for an office? It's going to be a pretty high profile. You may hear some things. Are you guys happy with it? And they both said, yeah, we're okay with it. But I've told my kids from the start, if at any time you guys are not happy with this, I don't care if it's 1 week before the general, I will pull the plug, because at the end of the day, it's more about making sure my family is taken care of than any political ambition or aspirations.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that, because your core value is first, my family comes first. And yes, I want to serve my country, but I must take care of my family first. And that's, it's something that I think for any endeavor you take upon, whether it's, building a business or deciding to run for office, you have to know your core values so that you don't get off target and you don't get pulled in the wrong direction. I think that's what some people are upset about some of the public servants, is they feel they're not pulled towards working for the people. And I think that's when you don't have a good center and core value, that you can easily be pulled in a direction that is not of good standing.
Well, and I think that's more prevalent, obviously, with people who are career politicians or have made being elected office, their career, and that's how they're paying their mortgage. Me, I'm fortunate enough, again, that we've worked very hard to get where we're at, and our business is running very smoothly. We don't do business with any government entities or any type of government related industries that would be able to kind of maybe sacrifice our judgment. So I think when you're not voting based on your next paycheck, when you're in elected office, that gives you definitely an advantage, because you sit there and focus on your core values, your morals and your ethics and your values, and you're not going to get compromised. Unfortunately, too many of our elected officials, and I would say it's probably well above 95%, politics is their career. That is how they're paying their bills. And so they almost feel like if they don't comply with lobbyists or PACs or whoever special interest, that all of a sudden they're going to be wondering, all right, how am I going to support my family? So I get where they come from at that point. But again, this is not supposed to be a career. For us, it's 12 years term limits, and that's it. After 12 years, we're done. And then, it'll be time for the next generation to take over.
Well, actually, I think it should probably be even a little less than that, because 12 years is quite a bit of time. And how do you think our founding fathers meant for the public servants to be, who ran in, Congress or Senate? Do they mean for them to just be moms and dads running for 3 to 4 years? Or how do you think the founding fathers saw the running of the different offices?
Well, back when the founding fathers did it, they, again, those people were farmers or merchants and like that, where in Congress was not a full-time job. It was, they served for a little bit and then they came back home. So, they had more and more breaks. Over the history of our country, it's obviously become basically, Congress, you're up there for the majority of the year. You're in DC. You've got a few breaks here and there, but it has become more and more as our issues as a nation, have become more and more as we've grown. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be accomplished in DC. For us, it's about cutting regulations. It's about fixing the military, and it's about fixing the VA. So. The VA is a big issue for me. My grandfather is 94 years old. He's a World War II veteran. And having gone through the VA process with him, it's atrocious. And it's not that the care in the VA is bad. It is just that the VA, there is not enough clinical professionals in the VA to be able to take care of the amount of veterans that we have. Obviously, we have our World War II veterans, we have our Vietnam and the Korean Wars, but then we also have, everyone from the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars. And so we need to figure out ways to fix the VA problems, because I don't think we've seen the height of them at this point.
No, because we're still honestly at war. We still have soldiers serving who are getting harmed in harm's way every day. And I don't think people look at that or see that, unless it's a reality for you and you have a child or a husband or wife or someone over there that's important to you, you don't see the effects of that. But it will affect the entire country, whether you know someone personally or not. It affects everyone here in the United States.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful for every one of our veterans. Unfortunately, I was not able to serve because I had some knee injuries that I sustained in college, and just could not pass the physical test to get into the Army. But I'm grateful for every one of our military veterans and military active personnel that we have out there. Because they are truly doing a sacrifice for our country. If you look at our military, they're not very well paid. Most of our enlistees, majority of them can qualify for food stamps, which to me is absolutely absurd that we pay our military that low for folks who are putting their lives on the line every day for us and protecting our core values and freedoms. And we're not giving them the financial support as a country to make sure that they have the best weaponry and the best equipment, but also make sure that they're they should be very well paid for being in there and serving our country. They're defending all the freedoms that, allow us to conduct business and live our lives, without fear. Yeah.
I think kind of our priorities, like someone who's in a paper pusher at a desk getting paid more than our military, than our teachers and our farmers. I'm like, I think we need to shift this a bit, because we need to eat, we need to have our kids educated, and we need to have our country defended. So yeah, I think we need to take a better look at that, because what I find a lot of citizens giving glory to are like celebrities, and they sit up there and sing a song or play ball or something. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But what is that doing to make life better? It's fun for an hour or so, but then what? I think we need to take a deeper look, from my perspective, seeing and going around the country and talking to citizens about what's important to them. What have you found from your perspective and talking to your constituents is some of the greatest issues facing the country that you've found?
We spend most of our time in the district talking to the constituents, because those are the ones who are going to vote for us primarily. Is the people in the district. But we do talk to people, throughout the country as we're kind of making our way around to, obviously, with fundraising and stuff like that. And it always seems to be healthcare is a huge issue for everyone. Again, it doesn't matter what side of the fight you're on. Everyone wants access to affordable, quality healthcare. Now, how we get to there is always a different question. Everyone has a different aspect. So that's one of the major issues. But then it's schooling, it's education. We want to make sure that our kids are on the right path so that they can compete on the world level with our, with their peers. And then also it is business regulation. That seems to be some of the biggest issues out there. People want it to be easier to conduct business and with less government intrusion.
Absolutely. For me, I often feel like, let us grow and build our best prosperous life without the government, without limited government getting in the way. And what is your perspective?
Government has no business being involved in business. So I'm a big believer in, again, what President Trump has done to start to kind of scale down some of the bureaucracy that is plaguing most of the agencies out there. And so, again, I'm a big supporter of that. But the government really should not be into business. Sure, they should make sure it's a fair playing field for everyone. But at the end of the day, let us run our businesses, and government should not be doing entitlements or handouts or anything like that to business. Look, if you want to start a business, start it. You can find a niche to make some money, make it. But the government should also be staying out of the wage wars, trying to set a minimum wage standard of, the $15 an hour that we keep hearing around the country. That's a bad idea. The way we as business owners attract good people is we pay our people a fair wage. We give them good benefits. Businesses know how to attract employees, and we know how to retain employees. Most of my employees have been with me an extreme amount of time. And so, and what you find is other businesses are the same way. Now, what happens when you start putting these higher levels of minimum wage, sure, it's going to cut into the profits. And to think that we're not, as business owners, going to raise our price and pass it on to the consumer is ludicrous. It's going to happen. We see it at the fast food restaurants and these type of businesses that have lower margins. Sure, that Big Mac at McDonald's used to cost $4. Now it's costing $6. Of course, they're going to pass that along. And again, that's where you have politicians who are just out of reality, who don't understand it. The reality is most Democrats in Congress want to claim that they understand what the average American wants and they're fighting for the poor. But most of the Democrats in Congress and Republicans are very wealthy people.
Yeah.
So I usually have a problem when you hear them talking about, well, I understand what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck.
No, you don't.
Really? You have a multi-million-dollar net worth. You're not really living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I remember when we started our business, several years ago. Sure, there was a time where we didn't take paychecks for months. But you know what? That's because we had employees that we had to make sure that they were taken care of and our suppliers were paid first before we took care of ourselves. And that's the risk we took.
Yeah.
And so, again, we as business owners, we know how to operate our businesses. We don't need government intrusion. We do need a more simplified tax plan. What was just done is a good start, but it didn't go far enough. We need to go back to the drawing table and do a realistic tax plan, because right now what we passed doesn't go far enough. And I think business owners on both sides of the aisle would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting when I've heard people complain, well, it's not fair. There should be a limit of businesses should pay at least this much. I'm like, seriously, you flip a burger and you get paid $15 and someone else who does, takes care of your children should get paid the same. Doesn't make sense to me. And what I say to someone, let's give an example here. There was a place in Manhattan I went to, and I used to go and have breakfast there. And I heard that they were hiring busboys who were illegal and charging them, like having them work around the clock for like pennies, and they started to protest outside the restaurant. Yeah. And when I saw them protesting and I saw, what they were saying, I was like, you know what? That's wrong. You're right. It is wrong. But I didn't want the government to go in there and say, okay, shut down the business. I said, no, I'm not going to give them my business. Yeah, I'm not going to give this restaurant business because I don't agree with what they're doing. And you'll say, well, then these people go out of business. No, they'll have to get work somewhere else, but at least they'll be paid a proper wage. And so when people complain and say, hey, I want the government to be the nanny state and come in here and fix issues, I'm like, well, no, we can fix issues with our pocketbook. We don't like something, we don't buy it from that business. And hence they go out of business and they don't do the things we don't like. Yeah. But I think we have a lot more power as citizens if we stand up and say, we don't like that. We're not going to stand for that.
Because there's always common ground that we can find. Again, it doesn't matter what party you are, whether it's politics or business, there's always common ground. I think where we've lost as a country is we've lost being able to be civil to each other.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really want to see us get back, is to be more of a civil nation. Again, where we can agree to disagree, but you're right. Going back to the restaurant, let citizens vote. Let us vote with our pocketbooks.
Yeah.
Because again, if there's a business that's not performing, as they should, again, if they don't have sales, they're not going to be in business very long. And we retain good employees by again paying them fair wages, giving them good benefits. And that's one thing as a business that we do, is we explain to our employees, hey, look, this is what the healthcare costs that we provide. Here's the different benefits from your PTO and all those other items that we provide. So when you think about, if you work in one of our warehouses, if you think about leaving us for 50 cents an hour, make sure you're getting apples to apples at that new employer, because it may not be apples to apples. So, we always try to make sure that they understand. And especially when we have issues where it's maybe one person works and then their spouse maybe doesn't work, and say some kids. What we like to do is we like to bring in the spouse too. And, we'll do a dinner once a quarter, especially for our new employees, and bring the spouse and bring the family in. And so we want the spouse to feel engaged in the company. We want them to understand, all these aspects that we're giving back to the employee, so that when they do think about leaving, or they do think about maybe looking for another job, the spouse says, wow, hang on, are we getting apples to apples here? So, but we also want them to make sure that we need them to work a little bit longer to help increase sales, that they're not getting the grief at home as well. So we want to make sure that, every one of our employees and their families are engaged in the company and understand the process.
Yeah, and that they're vested in it. By doing that, you make them an integral part of the whole company. And one thing I've gathered from people who might go to a job and not own a business is they feel like, oh, the business people are rich and they're just greedy. And I'm like, dude, it's a lot of risk to start a business. Like you said, you were paying your employees first for a long time before you paid yourself. And I don't think a lot of people who work at a job realize this risk and the stress that you put into creating a business so that you can have something to go to feed your family. And so I like that, the fact that you're showing them, hey, listen, we're giving you healthcare, PTO, And if you add that all together, we might be paying you a $50,000 salary, but if you add in all the PTO, it could be well over $100,000. But we don't look at that. We don't look at the fact that you're paying for health insurance, you're paying for this and that. And at the end of the day, you're really walking home with $100,000 perhaps, and not
and the argument that most business owners are the wealthy business owners taking everything out of the company is a far-fetched idea. I mean, most of us business owners, sure, we pay ourselves a salary, but then a lot of the profits we're making are rolling back into the company. For us, it's always rolling it back into inventory to make sure we have enough inventory on the shelves so that we can supply our customers. So this far-fetched notion that we often hear from DC politicians, that business owners are going to take everything out, it's a crazy notion. And it's coming from people who have never been in the real world, who have never experienced it. And I'll tell you, when we first started our business, every other Thursday night was a night that I didn't get sleep, because we'd always be wondering, all right, do we have enough money in the account to make payroll? And that, or do I need to transfer from my wife's and my personal account to make sure we have enough for our employees to get paid, and then get it back in there before she realizes that I moved money or something like that. But there's a lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of people don't realize the sacrifice that business owners make. And majority of businesses do not survive the first few years, and unfortunately, it's just part of the economy. It's part of business cycles, but it's the risk they take. So I'm always appreciative of anyone who starts a business. Whether they make it or don't, I'm appreciative of the risk they've taken, because I remember when we were there, and we always try to help smaller businesses. Whether they're maybe a potential supplier, we'll give them the chance to maybe supply us with some products that maybe we need. Because again, we were there, and there was companies that gave us the opportunity, and so we always like to kind of pay it forward at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we all take a different stance, like you were talking about civility, realizing that we all take a different road. Your road's not better than mine. I've chosen this road because it works best for me. And I think if we all that's one instance, but come at everything, like we can work together at this, whether it's healthcare, the VA, or business, that we can all come together in civility and come to common ground, because we do at the end of the day want the same things. Well, Scott, I have to tell you, it's been fabulous having you share your wisdom today. Let everyone know where they can find out more about you if they're in the state of Florida or around your area and they can vote for you. How can they do that?
Sure. So our district covers all of Seminole County, and then the northern half of Orange County, which is Orlando. And so they can find us online at scottsturgillforcongress.com or scottsturgill.com. They all kind of go to the same place, but then they can also find us on Facebook as well. Just type in Scott Sturgill for Congress, and you'll find us on Facebook as well. And, we'd love to have everyone follow us and, again, share their thoughts about what issues are important for them. Running for a federal office, we're not just, sure, we represent our district, but we're voting on issues that will affect everyone in the country. So, we want to know about all the different issues, whether it's an issue in California or an issue in New York. We want to know about it because, again, I think it helps to kind of round us out at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all in the same country, and if we work together, we can all make it so that we all have a great life and our children have a even better life. So, we can fix these problems together. Let's do it together. And so, Scott, I just have to thank you again for coming out and sharing your great wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.